Hello, hello, and welcome. Good to have all of you here. If you could please put your name in the chat and where you're tuning in from, that would be awesome. We're gonna give it a few minutes to let people filter in. I hope you're all doing well today. Hi, Kevin. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Good morning, Amy. Good afternoon, April. Two people from Illinois. That's awesome. We'll give it another minute here. Hi, Johanna. Hi, Paula. Good to see you. Hi, Taisha. I hope you're all enjoying your summer so far. Hi. Hi, Jessica. Beaverton. I'm in Oregon as well. I'm here in the Portland area. It's been a lot milder weather this week, which has been really nice. I hope you're enjoying that too. All right, so as people filter in, just keep putting your name and where you're tuning in from in the chat, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome again to How to Conduct Research and Get Published in the Field of Integrative Health. Today's webinar is hosted by myself, Felicia Royce. I'm the Director of Alumni and Career Services here. And we also have two panelists here with us today as well, Sian Seligman and Dr. Judith Thompson. And then Gina is also going to be in the background. She's our marketing manager, and she's going to be making sure everything's running smoothly with our technology. Gina is also monitoring the chat. So if you do hear her chime in, that is why. So getting started here, who we are. I know some of you here may not be students or alumni quite yet, but we are pioneers and leaders in online integrative health and wellness education. With over 45 years in distance education learning, we have served over 10,000 students and graduates in over 80 countries. Our mission is to lead the advancement of evidence-based integrative health and wellness education through experiential online learning and sustainable practices. So that's who we are. And then for the agenda today, we're going to have a panelist discussion. So I'm going to introduce the panel. I'm going to give a little bit of background and bio about our panelists. We're going to have a discussion prompted by questions that I'm going to be posing to the panel. At the end of the webinar, we're going to have a Q&A, a live Q&A, so you can ask any questions, facilitate conversation. You'll notice that the presentation, there's no way to take yourself off of mute. And the reason for that is because we do record this and we do email this out. So you will get a copy of this in your email today, couple hours after we end the webinar. But that being said, we want to make sure this is very interactive. Please use the chat. Don't be shy. We want to hear from you. I'll be monitoring the chat throughout and posing questions throughout the webinar. But if I don't get to your question, we will have that time at the end and I will circle back. So, and this webinar could go as far as an hour, but it may end earlier, just depending on how many questions we have and how things kind of go. But it will not exceed an hour. Okay, so without further ado, I want to introduce you to our first panelist today, Dr. Judith Thompson, our Dean of Herbal Medicine here at ACHS. So Dr. Judith Thompson is the Dean of Herbal Medicine here at ACHS and is a naturopathic doctor with a focus in herbs, homeopathy, nutrition, mind-body stress management, and women and children's health. Dr. Thompson was a doula, birth assistant, and midwife for 18 years, then transitioned into regenerative medicine, working with the Life Extension Foundation, and has been in private practice, working with people of all ages since 2005. Dr. Thompson has published articles on the mind-body connection and various natural remedies in the international medicine journals and is the co-author of a children's health book. She is the international consultant and presenter on naturopathic medicine, lecturing for naturopathic, osteopathic, and pharmacy schools, as well as national medical conferences. She has been interviewed by international nutraceutical companies, television, and radio shows. She is the current director of special projects and immediate past president of the Florida Naturopathic Physicians Association, serving on the board of directors since 2008. She is the former Florida representative for the House of Delegates of the American Association of Naturopathic Physicians. She was the executive director of the Naturopathic Medicine Institute for 3 years and has been teaching at the college level since 2007. We're certainly happy to have Dr. Thompson with us today, and we will hear from her in just a bit. But I do want to welcome our second panelist, Sian Seligman. Sian is an ACHS alumni and 2023 DEAC Outstanding Graduate Award winner. Sian is currently the Chief Strategy Officer for Flying Pig Technology, where she is developing technology-based solutions for psychedelic-assisted therapy. As the senior executive in charge of strategy and marketing, Sian has worked with Nestle, Burger King, Coca-Cola, Audi, NBC Universal, Walt Disney Company, Xbox, Sony, and Idealab, where she has led strategy and marketing initiatives. Her work with Audi led to 5 Super Bowl ads, and she was invited to Germany as their keynote speaker. She led the production of Burger King's award-winning video games and TV and film placements. Wired magazine hailed her work as brand integration to die for. As the CMO at Cone, a cannabis company, Sian and her team earned their first Clio Award in 2021. It was her work with cannabis that brought her to herbalism. She's a published researcher for her work in bringing awareness to the lack of BIPOC in psychedelic research and psilocybin as a treatment for race-based trauma. She is also a frequent contributor to Double Blind Magazine, a trusted resource for news, evidence-based education, and storytelling on psychedelics. She holds a master's degree in herbal medicine from ACHS. She has served as the chairperson of the Board of Governors at the City Club Los Angeles from 2020 to 2021, as their youngest chairperson and first Asian female to hold this role. She currently serves as the trustee on the board at the Chicago School. And we're so happy to have Sian here with us today. So we're going to transition here to the discussion portion of our webinar, where we're going to talk about conducting research in integrative health. So this is going to be an open discussion. Please feel free to chime in if you have any questions or comments. And we will, integrate those comments and questions in as we go. So the first question I'm going to pose to our panel today is, why is research so important to the field of integrative health? Sian, do you want to start with this question?
Sure. Research is really important for a number of reasons, whether you are a student or a researcher or a patient. Just being able to validate the efficacy of certain treatments is super important. But I think more importantly, as integrative health becomes much more of a practice that we see in our everyday lives, I think it's really important to have research validate the fact that it is an important and credible field of medicine. And so for me, when I don't want to pose this as a student, because I know there's a lot of students on this webinar, just being able to find research out there regarding CAM and integrative health was so important. I was really surprised at how much clinical research and really in-depth peer-reviewed research was out there about CAM. And I think it's really important to be able to back up the research that we're doing, and also showcase the fact that you don't necessarily need just allopathic medicine to heal yourself, but the fact that there's alternative therapies and treatments that can support or be integrated into that. It is just super important. And also, as you're doing your research, it's important to have a broader viewpoint of various avenues of research as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Dr. Thompson, do you have anything that you want to chime in with?
Yeah, absolutely everything that's Sian said, for sure. This is what's so different today than, I'm going to date myself. I mean, when I was in medical school 20 plus years ago, right, we had so little, and it was so little research in this particular field. And so a lot of the dominant medical systems, whatever, as the internet was getting developed, the messaging was that, there's not enough research yet. There's not enough research yet. And I think that still lingers in the online world. And so the fact that we do have research now, a lot of people aren't aware of it. And so the more that we talk about it and really showcase it, the more that we start to see, oh, well, just a single component of one plant, curcumin is the one that always comes to mind. And the last time I checked, I think there are about 18,000 studies on just curcumin alone. And so, and that's just one plant. Granted, that plant has a lot of actions, but when we start looking at the wide expanse of what's available, there's so much more now, and it continues to validate the work that we're doing and the ability to use this kind of medicine as an alternative to the allopathic model. So it gives people, I think, more confidence in this line of healing.
Absolutely. Thank you both so much for your thoughts on that. I wholeheartedly agree. So moving on to the next question here. In my role, I get a lot of questions about how do I get into the field of research? A lot of students and alumni that I work with are very interested in going this direction, but don't really know how to get there. So I thought we would take some time to really talk about this and talk about what's feasible and how, the field of research really needs our practitioners out there doing this work. So Dr. Thompson, do you mind kind of starting us out? I do have a slide for you here.
Yes, that would be great. Yeah, this is a nice way for me to be able to organize my thoughts, because there's so much here, and a lot of students or people just don't realize. And so I put them into these kind of broader categories. And, the one thing I always like to remind students I've worked with is, really kind of tap into, where's your heart? Where do you really see yourself? What would you enjoy doing? Or kind of where does your own curiosity take you, right? And so with that kind of framework, then we can start looking at, well, if you're really of a curious mind, right? If this is you, there's academic research for sure. So this is within educational settings, and that is something that we would do in all of our courses here at ACHS. But there are other institutions that are also doing research that need participants in some cases, right? And so, you could always volunteer for for another study going on at another institution. The clinical side. We've always thought of, hospitals as just doing drug research or surgical research, things like that. But they are now starting to really broaden their horizons. And they're also looking at, well, so many of their patients are doing some kind of CAM therapy. And so they want to know. And so they're starting to have departments within the hospitals, and they're also starting to do some research here. It's in its I'm going to call it infancy stage right now, because, for them, it's really kind of going out on a limb. And so they're small, but they're there. And where we have much broader opportunities are in clinical settings of, say, for example, an acupuncturist office or a chiropractor, naturopathic doctor, even a functional medicine doctor, or even in places like yoga studios, right? I'm seeing more research coming out where people want to know, okay, I'm doing this particular modality, but is it really helping? Maybe I feel better, but what's it actually doing? And so all of these practitioner types, they actually want to know, like, what are the physiological changes that we're seeing? And is this sustainable? And if so, for how long? Or what exactly is it that we're doing that's supporting health? And so many of these practitioners are going in and they're doing their own studies through their patient base. So you've already got, your kind of cohort of people, and you can, go in and start working with them. And lots of these practitioners are actually open to having someone from the outside come in and work with them. And I think that's a really nice way to collaborate with people in your community. So if you are wanting to build bridges, that's one of those nice ways to connect. Then there's the public health side of things. On the public health, they are developing programs that can be used in community health initiatives because they're seeing the increasing numbers of disease and mortality happening, not just within the adult population, but within children as well. And so they're looking at, well, what can we do and what changes can we make? And there are different offices that could be locally based, and even in places like, for example, the NIH, where I've had some of my previous students go in and help develop some studies. And so they're part of the whole research group or team that gets together to start looking at, okay, well, what are the needs of a particular demographic in a community? And how can we address this? What kind of alternatives are there? And how can we create a research study behind this to be able to validate? Because what they need is validation so that they can get funding. So they're highly interested in doing research. And then policy. So policy changes are one of the places where many people don't actually think about, but the policy changes are connected to public health because, again, they start within local governments. And I've sometimes seen them start even in school settings. I've seen more success actually in the elementary school settings where they're able to go in and they've got children that they're working with, or even in nonprofit organizations where there's a desire to know for very specific groups of people, how do we help? What can we do? And so to set new policies, we've got these research opportunities that sometimes are published and sometimes they are open to people approaching them to say, hey, I've noticed, this is a concern within our community, and I would like to investigate this further. And so they're very open to having people come in from the outside and say, all right, well, let's look at this. And for example, ethnomedicine is what I put in here. This is really studying traditional and indigenous health practices, which is on the rise because finally, it's in a larger level of awareness where there's realization that, we don't know, how particular health practices or lifestyle practices are affecting different indigenous groups, or how their traditional practices actually help to keep them healthier. And so there's more focus, there's more opportunity. And there was a study done in, I want to say it was either late 1990s or early 2000s, where we were looking at, for example, the Pima Indians in Arizona, where they recognized, these folks have a higher rate of diabetes. And so how do we then help support them? So these are the kinds of studies that could come out as we start to focus in these areas. And then on the technology side, there's health informatics specialists. Now, these are folks that are using technology to figure out, well, what are the trends that we're seeing? And so these would be trends that are much higher in number. So now we could start looking at, say, sections of the country, for example, or particular age groups. And so we're looking at regional. And they're trying to figure out, okay, how do we work with these numbers? What are we doing? You know, we're seeing these trends. How do we get there? And so this is for anybody who's more interested on the kind of tech side of things and is very organized in their thought. This is an area that is really exploding, and there is a lot of funding going towards this, and a lot of so we've got research going into lots of businesses, so like in corporate wellness areas, or companies like supplement companies that are wanting to promote their products. So they're using that information to be able to develop new products. So this is really big, and I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of it in the years to come. And then on the writer side of it, so just as there are people looking for research and wanting to make changes, they need grant writers. And so for people who are really interested on, okay, how do we use this data to be able to get the funding for the projects? Grant writers are always needed for every single research project that's out there, because they need money to be able to run the studies. And so the grant writer would help secure funding for research, managing the research grants, the budgets. This is a really big job. And if you were really interested in a particular research topic, and you were good at writing, you could combine those skills, and you actually are able to write yourself into the grant or write your job into the grant, and then set a budget aside for yourself. So you're kind of creating your own income in that particular setting. It's kind of a nice little loop in there. And then blog writers. And I know that might seem like a very kind of superficial thing, or something that wouldn't necessarily make money, yet larger health and wellness companies like Vitamin Shoppe is actually one that I get contacted by very regularly, because they want to interview me about a variety of health subjects. But so Vitamin Shoppe pays their people on staff who are their blog writers, who then submit all of their articles online. So all kinds of health food stores are doing this, supplement companies. There are increasing numbers of them in various areas, whether it's herbal medicine or in the cannabis world, or, we've got a lot of companies out there, even nutrition-based, for example, that are there needing people to write for them. And so this, takes, again, a lot of times they're looking for ideas from the writers. And so that's another place where research is in there. It's not as in-depth as it would be on the investigator side. So for somebody who doesn't want to go that in-depth, working on the writer side is a whole lot easier. And so those are just, generally speaking, some areas that are much broader, and there's lots of areas for development. And they may be already defined, or they may be places where people who are more of an entrepreneurial mindset can go in and create something for themselves.
Awesome. Wow, there's so many different ways you can take a career in this area. And it's so great to see that outlined. And I know, Sian, you have a really unique perspective with your background when it comes to working in this field. Do you have anything that you want to add to the conversation just around career pathways?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I want to let everybody know who is a student at ACHS, all of the work that you're doing in every single class where you write a research paper is such good practice. I can't tell you how important all of that discipline and rigor was in my just honing my skills. And so I think you'll become a much better researcher. You'll be totally prepared when you graduate to write your own research paper. I mean, this capstone will feel like a breeze once you've gone through several semesters of classes and writing research papers. So I want to just give you that confidence that you'll get there, and it'll be really, you'll just see how far you've come. But beyond that, in terms of my own personal experience, full disclosure, I'm actually getting published in September. So it's been a long road for me to get there. And we can talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But the bottom line is that I came to ACHS because I was working in the cannabis industry. I was a marketer. I was the chief marketing officer for a brand called Koan, as Felicia mentioned earlier. And as a marketer, I do research. I do mostly consumer research. And so the sort of more traditional research or the clinical research wasn't something that I was typically familiar with. So going through the ACH process was really helpful. But it made me a better marketer, because ultimately what I wanted to do was, we were a plant touching company, and I wanted to be able to speak intelligently about the research. I didn't want to just parrot what somebody else had told me. So we had a chief science officer who would tell me a lot of data, but I wanted to be able to do that research myself and understand what that process was, so then I could speak to it from my own knowledge and my own experience. So there's that aspect of it. So if you are working in a company that, as Dr. Thompson suggested, Vitamin Shop is a company that does that kind of thing. So, whether it's vitamins or minerals or supplements in general, whether it's a plant-based company like cannabis, or maybe you're getting into psychedelics, all of those companies require people to be well researched, regardless of your title in the company. So you don't necessarily have to be a researcher to understand research or use research. I use research all the time. For instance, I'm now working as a strategist, chief strategy officer for a technology company called Tiger Pig Entertainment. Called Tiger Pig Technology. The technology part of it is mostly for 3D graphic development. However, we are developing a process by which we're going to create a tool that will allow people to use VR for psychedelic assisted therapy, to assist with that. So while the technology doesn't necessarily use psychedelics exactly, it can help enhance that process. So again, just being able to have that discipline, rigor, and experience in doing research can now make you better at different positions. So as a strategist, I'm a better strategist because I've gone through the research process. I'm a better marketer because of that. And so you can start to see how those things can apply to the work that you do. So be really creative about that, because now you're able to read white papers more effectively. Now you're able to read clinical studies more effectively. And then the other thing I wanted to just mention is that it's also good practice if you want to become a writer, because I write for Double Blind. That's not my main source of income. Sometimes writing isn't a very lucrative position, but it definitely keeps your tools sharp and it keeps you in there. So you're constantly doing the work to stay abreast of what are the topics that people are interested in, what are the topics that are most current, and you're going to be a voice of expertise in the field. And so having yourself out there as a writer is truly important, because not only are you helping shape people's minds in education about plant medicine, but you're also out there doing the work and staying sharp so that when you get ready to publish your own research, you're ready.
Yeah. Yeah, such great advice. Such great advice. And I would also want to add, for those that are students here, as you're doing research for your papers, keep a portfolio, keep somewhere on your computer or somewhere that you house the work that you're really proud of, and start to kind of gain work that you can share. You put a lot of time into research here, and you never know, somebody might want a sample of your writing down the road. So I really like that you mentioned, the writing that they're doing in school, and the research that they're doing in schools is really important. It doesn't have to start once they graduate, right? They're already doing it. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I know that there are questions that are popping up here in the chat. I'm going to get to some of these in the Q&A section just to monitor the time here. But I will pose one question. Carissa had asked, can we go to a company and ask if we can investigate for them, or maybe pay us, or is this a position that's out there? I don't know if one of you want to maybe talk a little bit about like how to find positions out there, but I can say, obviously having my pulse on the job market every day, there are positions that are posted out there for writing positions. Sometimes they're contractor positions, sometimes they are employer positions. as an employee. But, you know, I think it can go both ways, where you can develop a relationship with a company and, you know, you kind of pave your way with that company and doing investigation for them, or you can look for a position. Do either of you have any anything to chime in on that front? Just like when they're looking for positions out there, maybe where they could go to find that?
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, if there's a company, for example, that you really like, that you use their products, you feel really strongly about them or about their mission, check their job board. Go to their website and check their job board and see what they have, what their you know, what kinds of jobs that they are posting. But at the same time, just read through their website and see kind of what their projects are, what are they working on, to see what they're interested in and see if there's alignment for yourself with what they're doing. So that's a really nice way of being able to create a bridge, right? Create an alliance, start building those relationships, and then just reaching out, you know, because those companies will remember the folks who approach them and have good ideas. And again, they will create positions, right? Sometimes you can create your own position. So something that isn't published. So don't be scared to reach out, because they're often grateful for the input from, especially from somebody who's using their products.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. The other thing too is that I'm a really big proponent of networking in the communities that you want to be a part of. I was a part of a number of cannabis communities, women in cannabis, Asian Americans in cannabis, BIPOC in cannabis. And I mean, the fact is that those are folks who are doing good work, and they oftentimes have projects that need people. And so I was able to find I was approached by Double Blind through one of the networks. Someone who was on their board and approached me. And so, you know, you never know who you're going to meet. Go to those conferences that are of interest to you, your passion points. And then also I would suggest that looking at the research that you're reading, who's sponsoring that research? Because a lot of times those companies will have positions or projects or research that they're doing where they're going to need people like you. So I think that's also a good resource for you as well.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your feedback on that. Okay, so I think this is a very important question. How does research impact underrepresented communities? And I know, Sian, you've done some amazing work in this area. Do you mind kind of starting with this question and elaborating a little bit on the work you've done and the importance of it?
Sure. So originally I started, I knew that I wanted to do research for my capstone on psilocybin in particular. And I wanted to find an angle that I cared about. And Dr. Thompson mentioned specifically about what are your passions? What are you curious about? And truly, it's something that I'm passionate about, is to raise awareness of the fact that there's lack of BIPOC in empirical research in general, not even just in psychedelics. And if we're going to, and so my angle was racial trauma. I have experienced racial trauma. I know many BIPOC people have a lot of issues related to racial trauma. And, you know, I thought, you know, maybe psychedelics is a place where people can find healing. And so I think it's really important to raise awareness for that. And more importantly than anything else, regardless of whether or not someone finds something insightful in my research, the most important thing for me to articulate through my research was the fact that BIPOC are underrepresented. And that's something that not only is about the research study itself, it's the people involved. So it's people who are developing the research. It's the people who are at the companies who are sponsoring the research. It's the participants. So, you know, you think, oh, well, they just didn't include BIPOC in the participants. But if you're not a person of color who's developing the study, oftentimes you're not going to be thinking about people of color because you're not a person of color. So it's just not in your consideration set. And it's not good or bad. It's just that, you know, you don't know what you don't know, right? And so I think that if we can open up more space and capacity to have those conversations in our own communities, then we can make other people more aware of the fact that this is something that we can address together.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Thompson, do you want to add anything here?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is the one area where we can start to see, I think, uh, how we can start working with different populations to target their specific needs. You know, prior to the 1990s, we didn't even have we now have on the national level, the Office of Women's Health, right? And so now all of a sudden that office opened up and all this research came out about, oh, well, women are different than men in this way, you know, and all, it just opened up a whole entire other world of discovery. And so then, you know, different treatment protocols came out of that. And we're now here where we're kind of branching off again and saying, oh, wait a second, there are people who may have different genetic backgrounds. And so, well, how is that going to affect their, just as an example, their liver detoxification, right? And so then we can start looking and preparing protocols or starting to work with folks in ways that are really going to be successful for them, right? That it's going to be effective. It's going to help them achieve that level of health that they're looking for. So, you know, lots of times we're kind of left at this, or at least in the, and when we get to medicine, where we get to stages where people have chronic disease and we don't know what else to do and how can we help them, when we start really looking at the research and getting into those specific details, then we can start to uncover things and help these different folks who've just kind of hit a wall with their treatment to be able to take another step and you know, ideally be able to improve their health. So it's really important because we don't, you know, for many years, research was focused on one persona type, and that was it, right? And so there's a lot more of us in the world.
Yeah, thank you so much, both of you, for your insight. And please keep the chat going, you know, comments. Again, questions that I haven't gotten to, I will get to at the end, keeping a close eye on time here. So we're going to kind of transition the conversation to getting published in the integrative health field and what that process looks like. And so we'll start with kind of a double question here. You know, I just would love to know more about the experience of getting your work published, what that's been like for you, kind of what the benefits of getting your research published looks like for you. So Dr. Thompson, do you mind kind of starting and just sharing a little bit of your experience and why it's important to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's been wonderful. I've loved it. So on the one hand, I was able to kind of get my own curiosity that was out there, being able to get it written, investigated, looked at, and then published. And then what was really fun that I didn't know was the other, you know, other professionals, other people in the field that would be interested, and they would start reaching out to me. And so I've been able to collaborate on more articles from there and just develop really nice relationships with other people that I never would have met, right? Had my work not been out there. And then also, you know, being a published author, I just feel like the work that I've been able to do, I've been able to affect the lives of people that I will never meet, right? That I really, my desire to help people is so big, but there's only so much that I can do one-on-one, you know, or even, you know, in a small setting. But when you've got published work out in the world, then there are other people who will find that, and the work, everything, every effort that you're taking right now will still help more people. So to me, that's value that goes long beyond the time that you're in there doing the research yourself. And for me personally, that brings me a lot of just satisfaction in the work that I'm doing and knowing. And I will randomly sometimes get approached by people who've read my work, and I mean, it's a boost, right? Like somebody will say, oh my gosh, you did this work and I love the work that you did and it's great and it's helped my family so much. And it's like, wow, okay, I really am doing good work in the world. It feels incredible. So yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Sian, I'd love to hear from you as well.
Yeah, it was a really fun and it was a fun process. I discovered as a student that I love research. It is so, I mean, it's never been a dull moment for me. And I never thought that I would spend my free time reading clinical studies. But I absolutely love it. And for me, it's really fascinating. So then doing my own research was even more fascinating because it's something I'm passionate about, obviously. But the benefit for me is that obviously gives me credibility, but it also really is sort of that cherry on top now that I've graduated, knowing that I was really well prepared and that someone out in the world actually wants to publish my research is incredible. And I think if I could give anyone advice in terms of my own experience, it would be to start thinking about it from day one. I mean, I knew from the day I stepped in the ACH class that I wanted to get published. And so that was my goal. And I wanted to keep my eyes on that prize throughout my entire degree process and my program. And so, it helps you because as you're learning how to do the research process, it really then helps prepare you to just be ready for the publishing process because you've already kind of gone through all those steps, but it also sort of frames up what your goals are. And so, it's a long process. I'll tell you that much. It took, I graduated in 2023 and I'm only getting published now. So over a year. And so, just know that it takes a while and it's not overnight, but it goes really fast though, too. All of a sudden you're working with your editor and you're like, oh man, this is almost ready. So I would just say, don't get discouraged if you've already started trying to reach out to publications and things like that, and you've gotten no's, or maybe it's just taking a while. They take a while. I mean, these people have a lot of articles that they're reading, submissions that they're receiving. So just be patient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I add a little bit on there? Because the cycle from the publishing side of things, it could be anywhere from 6 months to a year, even if they say yes, that they like your work because of their publishing schedule, which is already kind of in place. So the work that you do may not, they may not even get to it for 6 months to a year. So just keep working, right? Keep working, keep building your research yourself. For when I was working on my book, that was research that I had been continuously doing actively for a good 10 years and then it took me another year to write the book and then, to publish it. So yeah, it's a long process, but you keep doing it. And this is where, when you've got that fire for curiosity and knowing things, it just keeps kind of building on itself. So again, all of those efforts that you make, they just build over time. So nothing is wasted.
Agreed.
Perspective.
Yeah.
And there's a question, Sian, for you. Did you publish first as a sole author? Or did you work with a team?
Yeah. So originally when I was going to publish my capstone as is, I actually added Dr. Nagel, who was my dean at the time, as a co-author. However, when I submitted to this particular publication, which is called Voices, which is a journal published by the American Academy of Psychotherapists, they have a different format. And in fact, they asked me to relax the academic rigor. And the reason why is because with their journal, they're written by psychotherapists. I'm obviously not a psychotherapist, but the perspective was that they wanted a personal voice as part of the research. And they don't typically publish a lot of research. So it was really an honor to get selected as well. But the point, though, is that I had to bring in some personal information as part of that in my experience, which actually was really hard because you can imagine revealing, experiences of racial trauma. It's really personal. It's really, I had to be very vulnerable. And so in doing that, I changed to being a sole author because it just made more sense because it was really about my personal story in addition to the research. So I think it kind of depends.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a question, kind of a sub question for you, Dr. Thompson. Can an alumni return to the campus to ask their dean to work together on publishing? Like, what is the role of the deans in this process, if there is any role?
Yeah.
Speak to that at all?
Absolutely. Yeah. So anyone, if you are an alumni and wanted to come back, there was something that you were interested in, reach out to any of the deans, including myself, whatever your subject area is, because we're happy to work with you. We've got lots of resources that we can work with. And in some cases, depending on the journal that you're reaching out to, they may have requirements that you would need somebody with a doctorate to be part of your research team. And so we could be that person for you. Oftentimes what will happen is, this is your idea, so you would work it out, but we would work together on making sure that your final paper, right, however it is that you wanted it, that, we would look at it together, that we would look at that data together to make sure that everything is making sense, that, that there's a good flow to it. So absolutely, we would definitely be able to work together if that was something that was of interest to you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm keeping a close eye on time, so I think I might skip that question since we've kind of covered it, and I'm gonna kind of end before we go into Q&A with what resources are available. And Dr. Thompson, I know you had provided some information, and we had a couple of questions in the chat that I think will satisfy their question by going into this information. So do you mind kind of taking the lead here on this question?
Yeah, so I can go through this one rather quickly here. Because, so I mentioned at the very beginning, what's in your heart, what's sitting there, or what's kind of picking away at your mind that you've got this curiosity going, right? So you've got this question that you really want answered. And so the first place to start would be to do a literature review. And so you've got numerous places where you could go to search to see, is there anything that's written about this topic? And so you could go to PubMed, Google Scholar, JSTOR, ResearchGate, or even our university library, or in some cases, other university libraries, if they're public, right? And then you could go in and just check and see what's available. But all of these resources are free. And so you just set up your search parameters, see what comes up. And then you would find a journal, right? If you did your literature review, you found the information, and it's substantiating that there's a gap in information, say. So you've got your idea, and this is what you're working with, and then you would find your journal. So there are journal finder tools. Elsevier has one, Springer, EDANS, which would help you identify suitable journals based on your particular title and abstract. So you'd have to, have something already written to get some ideas. There's the directory of open access journals, right? And then also a company called Think, Check, Submit, and they help to identify trusted journals for research. So, so these are places to kind of begin to see, all right, this is my topic, and these are places where I potentially could publish. And then you would want to, and I think we go into the next slide. What are the particular submissions? So working on the submission side, what are their guidelines, right? What is it that they're specifically looking for? Because they will have detailed guidelines and say, these are the requirements. This is what we will accept, right? So you want to read through those really carefully. And as you're going through your writing and preparing your manuscript, there are lots of different sources here that, again, many are free. That will then help you organize your thoughts or format your citations or improve your writing, or helping edit, or if you had like Overleaf, for example, would help you understand, okay, this is a good place to add a figure, right? And they also have people that would help collaborate. So if you were not really sure what would be the best way to organize this information, there are people that would chime in and help you kind of figure things out. You've got the Purdue OWL, which helps you know how to cite your information correctly per whatever style of citations the journal wants. So this is why you go to the journal guidelines first, see what they want, and then you can tailor it for that particular journal. And then, of course, there's the professional editing services, and this is an absolute must. Even if you're a great writer, definitely want an editor on board, because The editor's going to have fresh eyes to look at your work. You know, we're in there, we're working on stuff, we're writing, and we miss things. It happens to all of us, or, you know, it makes sense in our head, and then somebody else is reading it and going, well, what did you mean here? And so your editor is really, in this whole process, your best friend that's going to help guide you and correct and just really augment and simplify your ideas and make it so that anyone else who's coming in to read your work is going to be like, well, of course, clear as day, right? So that's really what you're going for, and helping you proofread all of those things. And so that's really, if there's funding that's involved, you want to have some portion of it to go to your editor, and you want a good editor. I've had my fair share of bad editors and great editors. And if you find a great editor, they are worth every single cent that is paid to them. So, yeah, so those are kind of just more of the details on the actual writing of it.
This is so very helpful. And just a reminder to everybody, this is going to be sent out, this presentation. So don't feel like you have to feverishly write down notes. This will be sent to you if you want to, you know, take a look at these resources. Sian, I'd love to hear from you if you have anything to add in terms of resources that have worked well for you.
Yeah, I've had professors at ACHS serve as proofreaders and editors as well, or just fresh eyes, like Dr. Thompson had mentioned. Dr. Jackie and Dr. Nagel were both really instrumental in helping move my research along. The other thing I wanted to make mention of that was within the slide that Dr. Thompson put up there was the guidelines for journal submissions. I mean, I would suggest you print it out and use it like a checklist, because it's really important that you follow the rules, because it can bounce you out of the process pretty easily if you miss something. And most editors are pretty generous. They give you a lot of grace, I would say. But the one thing that I was really surprised by is the fact that most of the journals that I tried to submit to, or that I was interested in submitting to, the word count was much shorter than my ACHS capstone. So be aware of that. And that, you know, there's a lot of academic rigor that ACHS requires of your research papers. And there's a lot of sections that a lot of journals are not going to want, you know, and so just be aware of that. And you're going to probably need to do a lot of editing in your process as you write and submit as well. And you're going to probably have to forego some big sections that you worked a long time on. And you're going to have to sacrifice some of that. And it's really hard. And it's really hard to decide what to get rid of, because they're all your babies. I get it. But just know that, you know, there's a lot of really golden nuggets in your research in there, and there's lots to keep, and there's lots of important information. So, you know, just know that, you know, sometimes that's part of the process.
Such great advice. I've most definitely heard that before from other people. Like it can be a rough thing to go through the first time or two when, you know, you turn something in and you get something back that looks a little different. So thank you so much. And I believe this kind of brings us, and I know we're a little shorter on time than I would like. We have about 5-6 minutes before we have to wrap up here. But I want to get to some of these questions, and I want to let you guys know too that I can definitely follow up with you to answer questions if you still have them, you know, after this webinar is over. So a question that came up was, how do you find a good editor? And usually what does that cost look like?
Well, that's a really good question, because the cost can vary. So you can get a really low cost editor, or you could pay thousands of dollars. And this is actually tricky. This is one of the things that I had a hard time with. I would say, you know, if you can get a personal connection, somebody that's trusted, somebody who's already published and could make a connection to an existing editor that, you know, that they had a good experience with, then go that route. That was my personal best editor experience in the past. And if you don't know anyone within that kind of category, then look at reviews, like truly look at those reviews to see, you know, what are they looking for? And also, you know, when you're seeing editing services, a lot of times companies will add on a whole lot of other things, and you don't necessarily need, you know, the full package that's being offered with marketing and lots of other things that they put in there. And so, just go for the editing, because other things you can find other ways or other people that can help you at a lower cost. So go with the editing piece. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting question, Sian. What was your experience like?
My experience is that I was working at double blind already. And so I had access to editors. And so, I just asked them for help. I was like, hey, would you be willing to look at this and edit this for free? And they really did. I mean, the good news is that I really didn't have to do a ton of editing overhauling because I had already done that previously. And I think that especially if you're asking somebody for help for free, do as much of the work as possible on your own before you hand it over to them. And I think that just makes the ask a little bit easier. And then, again, like I said, I relied on both Dr. Jackie and Dr. Nagel at the time, and they were really helpful. And so I think, also tap in your networks. Maybe somebody knows an editor that you can tap into.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you bring up a really good point too of, working in the industry in another role. Do you mind sharing, and it's okay if you don't want to share, but do you mind sharing what you were doing for double blind before producing writing for them?
Yeah. And actually I have all of my double blind articles on my website, which is just Seligman.com. But they hired me as an herbalist because of my graduate degree at ACHS. So it was pretty cool, right? I hadn't even graduated and I was already working for them. I had already been working in the cannabis industry. Double Blind is mostly an educational publication about psychedelics, but they also cover cannabis. They cover a lot of plants as well. And so so most of my work is educational in nature, and so educating people about how to process herbs, how to use herbs, how to make tinctures and things like that. And so that's the kind of work that I was doing. But again, it was just invaluable because they require references, and so just having that knowledge of how to do that was really important. So yeah.
Awesome. And I don't know if either of you could speak to this at all, but it has come up a lot in the work that I do with students about like how to find legitimate opportunities. The question has come up, do I have to pay to get my work published? And so we're talking about like paying an editor and paying, for other services to get to that point. But do you have any experience with that process? Like, I usually will tell students, like, you really shouldn't be paying, to submit your journal or your publication or your capstone, to a journal. But I'm not really in this world. So have you ever heard of having to pay for this? And like, how does somebody maybe just look for the legitimacy and not kind of, get down a rabbit hole with maybe, an organization that's maybe not going to be the best one for them to be working with. I hope I'm making sense, but do either of you have any experience with that?
Yeah, this is an interesting one because when you're looking at, if you're just submitting a research article, a small article, I don't know, say 2,000 words, give or take. So those kinds of things you can submit. And, what I would look at for the journals is what are the parameters under which they're going to publish their work? Like, are you going to retain the rights to that? Or, where is it going to go? Is it going to be open access? Right. So those are the kinds of questions to think about. And I've never seen one that would be a paid version. So you shouldn't have to pay because this is part of adding to the scientific literature, right? To research that is benefiting everyone. So yes, that should not be paid. But if you're looking at a book, then that I've seen books are a different issue. Books are often now being paid, or if you're working with a larger publisher, you don't necessarily pay up front, but you don't get paid for royalties until much further down the line. And pretty standard is only to make about 10% of, like, royalties is anywhere from 5 to 10% of whatever the book sales are. So that's pretty standard in the industry.
That
Yeah,
is
I paid zero. I paid
Yeah.
zero to submit mine.
Yeah.
I didn't have to pay for an editor. You know, obviously a lot of the publications will have their own editors, and sometimes your writing can be good enough that you can submit, and then, you know, the editor, you work directly with the editor, which is mostly my experience. And then, you know, when I'm writing for Double Blind, they pay me. You know, I'm a freelance contributor for them. So depending on, I mean, obviously that's not a peer-reviewed journal, but it is a writing assignment. And so, you know, getting that practice and getting paid for it is pretty great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And that validates my guidance as well that I'm giving students and alumni. So I really appreciate you tackling that question. And so we are running out of time. I do have all of your questions that I'm going to go back and make sure that I contact you and answer your questions personally if we didn't get to it today. And just as a reminder, Alumni and Career Services is here to support you. So if this brings up, you know, any excitement for you and you want to start looking at these career pathways, I'm happy to help you with that process. And so definitely get in touch with me. You know, we can talk more about that. And I just want to give a heartfelt thank you to both of our panelists today for sharing their wisdom and their insight and volunteering their time. Thank you so much for being here, and for all of our attendees. Thank you for you know, chatting and asking questions and being engaged. I think this is a really important conversation, and I just want to thank everyone for being involved.
Thanks for having us today. It was
Thank
really
you.
Yeah,
It was
thank you all.
I
Yeah,
loved it.
I'm sorry that we ran out of time. I wish we could probably talk about this for another hour, but I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will hopefully talk to you all soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.